Thea Care welcomes you to a recorded webinar on the topic of healthy menstrual cycle. We are in conversation with Sivaranjani Ganapathy, a women's health coach. Here in this webinar, you find all your answers to questions like what is a healthy menstrual cycle? How do you know if your cycle is healthy? What is the role of food? And what can you do if there are some symptoms of you having an unhealthy menstrual cycle? Take a close look, and I thank you for joining. Can you tell us a little bit about your work? Can you tell us a little bit about your learnings about the menstrual cycle, and then we get started?
Sure. So, hello to everyone present here, and congratulations to Swarnama for organizing such a brilliant thing for the women out here. So, and about me, I'm actually an aerospace engineer. Within, I shifted tracks from those, and I started my career as a baker, and then again I shifted tracks, and then I became an organic skincare manufacturer, which is our primary business right now. And I had difficulties in getting pregnant, and I was suffering from PCOD issues. And of course, PCOD is equal to infertility in India. So, and every one of us, and anyone who we met were like, you don't have a baby, you got married like 3 years ago, and everything, and which got me back in tracks. And I had a miscarriage, failed IUI, and everything gave me a lot of insight about how a menstrual cycle should work and everything, and how nutrition played a major role in that, which made me to become a nutrition coach. And from that, I started learning a lot about women's menstrual cycle and everything. So I've been taking sessions for women who are willing to bring their cycles into track, and for fertility and conception. And right now it's all about learning about hormones, and I've been into a little bit of postpartum as well, but I'm still studying a lot about how postpartum works and lactation and everything as a newborn, I mean new parent educator as well. So it's still learning for me. But then with the health coach and the nutrition coach and everything, I've been helping women to bring their cycles on track for overall health.
All right. I think what is very encouraging about your journey is that you know you spoke about your experience with PCOS, miscarriages, IUI. First of all, thank you so much for sharing this, and I think this is something very encouraging for people because a lot of people think that once you have PCOS, once you have endometriosis, it is a final nail in the coffin and nothing can be done about it, and you will definitely have to do IVF, blah blah blah, all kinds of things. So it is so and for a lot of women, they are under pressure because fertility is something that our society is so obsessed with, fertility at the right time, everything, all of that. So I think so your story, I think, gives a lot of hope to a lot of people. So I'll start with the first and the very basic question, Sivaranjani. um, why is it important to have a healthy menstrual cycle, and what is a healthy menstrual cycle? Some people think that, okay, if you're having a little bit of bleeding, like once every month, that's fine, that's enough. But a healthy menstrual cycle is so much more than that. So can you tell us what is a healthy menstrual cycle, and why is it important for our overall health, not just fertility?
Fertility, true.
And
Yeah.
also
So,
another thing, sorry, Sivaranjani, to
no.
interrupt you. If you can just adjust your your mic a little bit, because I think some people are saying that the volume is low. Little bit,
Volume
if
is low.
possible.
Okay.
Just a little.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yeah, much better, much better. If possible.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, perfect. No issues. So yes, like you told, menstruation doesn't mean that it is only needed for fertility, because it has been a common practice for around, like even it happened in my own family, that once they had two babies, and if they're having any endometrial issues or fibroids and everything, they're like, let's chop your uterus because you no longer need a uterus, because you no longer want to have a baby because you already have two. So that is a common practice that has been having, I mean, many women have. And but it is completely wrong. That is because you need a functioning uterus for the overall health. So there are women who are suffering from trauma post a surgery, and I personally know a person who just for having a C-section, she still blames, and it's been 10 years, and that is still affecting the relationship between her and the kid. So any kind of a surgery, it is going to impact you in that way. And since our women reproductive system is the major factory for all the hormone in our body, it is very much ideal that we have that. And if at all not, anyways, you'll be put on bioidentical hormones and all these things, and again, it's going to mess up your cycle. So in my perspective, and it is that you need to have a regular periods of 28 to 30 days, and it should last for at least 3 to 5 days with, see, one heavy bleeding in the first 2 days is fine, no issues at all, and a mild pain on the first day is also common. But then it might come as a surprise, but then a period should never have PMS or cramps or any pain. So if at all you're facing any PMS symptoms or PMDD or any kind of cramps or heavy pain during your period or before you get your period, and even after having your periods, people tell that they have spotting that has been lasting for almost 15 days. That is not normal, which means there is something happening in your body and you need to have it checked. So for most of us, it is like, okay, I didn't get my periods for a very long time, and I just had a few spotting. And for those people who spoke that to their doctor regarding this, they told her, okay, at least you didn't have period for a very long time, at least you have spotting, so let's consider that as a period, and here you go, take this tablet, you will have your periods next time. Again, people should understand that by correcting the lifestyle and diet, like we've been talking about this since 4 p.m., it plays a major role, because only when you start eating right, your body starts to respond right. By having, see, having pill like the hormone pills and everything, it is just like you're giving a signal to your body like, okay, don't worry, because I'm going to give you something external which will do its work, and you need not put pressure on yourself, and you need not function properly. That is completely all right, because I'm already having some supplements for it, which is ideally wrong. And being a person who's addressing a lot of not teen actually, women who are almost in their reproductive age and who are planning to get married and everything, for them fertility matters a lot. And in case if they're not gonna have all these things sorted before they get married and everything, this adds a lot of extra pressure for them. So I've been dealing with people personally like this a lot. So for me, of course, it's a choice of to have a baby or not. But then if you're not gonna have a baby and you still think that I'm not planning for a baby, and it's completely fine, but then let me have a messed up cycle, it means it can give a lot of other impacts, like you'll have weak hair, weak nails, and then overall weakened body when your hormones are not playing a good role in you. And you might also have a lot of mood swings, which will lead to PMS and PMDD, like Anuya who spoke earlier. And that can, it can be also hormones plays a major role according to me. So I've been learning a little extra about them. So I definitely feel that it is majorly hormones that are playing a major role in the overall health. And if you're not going to have a balanced hormones between you and it is going to end up in some other, it's not just periods, but then in other factors as well.
Right. Thank you for that introduction, Sivaranjani. Now, one question that we often get is when we are talking about, a healthy menstrual cycle, a lot of people have said that, their cycles have changed a little bit over their lifetime, which is like often normal that, like your cycles are never the same. But if there is spotting or bleeding, within, like, apart from the 5 days or whatever 3 days of bleeding, what can that be a symptom of? Why might that be happening?
Okay, see, spotting after a period, it means that your body is not that equipped yet because your endometrial lining is still forming, or if there is any discrepancies in the progesterone levels, this quite happens between, I mean, among women who have irregular periods for a very long time, PCOD people, and everyone, because their body is not quite equipped with the hormone balance, and with the progesterone happening inside, they still can get spottings and everything. So you need to sort that kind of a spotting, which is much needed. And because number one, it gives you a mental peace that you're bleed free and your 5 days is done, and then you can just keep moving on with your work. So it can be a progesterone issue, and that can lead to a lot of spotting, and even after having the period.
Okay, and we've spoken a lot about diet and all kinds of things throughout our conversation. Now, a lot of people feel a little scared of admitting that there might be a menstrual health issue because, like you rightly said, that fertility is such a big pressure for women most of the time, even today, and even in educated families and all those things. So they feel that that okay, they will try to delay the diagnosis or delay going to a doctor as long as the periods are happening on time or they're happening a little bit on time. So what are some symptoms which can tell a person that there is something wrong with the menstrual health cycle and that they need attention?
Okay, see, for most of the women, the important thing that they need to note is that if they are ovulating, when it comes to fertility and fertility aspect, they need to know if they are ovulating. And even for those, I mean, for everyone, I think you need to know if you're ovulating. Only then there is a balance between the estrogen and the progesterone happening in your body, which means your overall health is good. So, you'll need to check that, and it doesn't mean that just because you're bleeding, it doesn't mean that you are ovulating and everything is in balance. Your bleeding can happen even if you're estrogen dominant, because your endometrium lining keeps on forming very fast, and that can break down and you can get your periods, and those kind of periods are very crampy, very heavy, and you have a lot of PMS symptoms, you get a lot of bloating. And these people who are estrogen dominant can fall under the category of endometriosis, fibroids, polyps, and all these things. And for the things with progesterone issues, means it is just spotting, very scanty periods, and their periods isn't happening properly. That is because either in their case, the endometrium lining is not forming properly, or your body is not having that much of progesterone boost to bring about the periods. So any of this can happen. So ideally, I would say that anyone who's having a very frequent period, like once in 2 months, not frequent periods as in twice in 1 month, or a very irregular period that goes beyond 3-4 months, I think they should address those issues properly and just check if all the vitals are good in their body. And most of the people, I mean, when they visit the gynecologist, the first test they're going to take is a thyroid test. That is because that itself says that every hormone in our body plays a major role. They speak to each one of them, including the cortisol and including your immune hormones, the cytokines, and all your FSH, LH, insulin, everything talks to each one of them. And if there is an imbalance in any of them, you will come under the category of PCOD or endometriosis or insulin resistance in that factor. And that might lead to a lot of excess androgens as in the testosterones and everything in your body. Again, that can lead to PCOD. And other external factors that you can notice is that excessive hair fall, and then brittle nails, and a lot of facial hairs, body hairs, and then acne, heavy acne. All these things can also mean that there is no hormone balance inside, which you need to address as well. Oh, you're
Sorry,
muted.
I was muted. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one thing that we are often asked is that we've established a lot, in this discussion today about the role of diet. And one of the first questions was that how do we realistically manage our diet and lifestyle? And everyone's spoken about the staggered way in which you can change it. Now, we get a lot of questions about what is processed food, what is not processed food, and how exactly is that affecting our hormones. So, can you tell us a little bit about some foods that can specifically help people who may not have endometriosis, who may not have PCOS, but they are still not entirely healthy? Like you said, they get bloating and they get breast tenderness and stuff like that. And it's not everyone who has these PMS symptoms need not have an illness in that sense, but
Yeah,
still it is uncomfortable cyclically. So what are
yeah.
some diet and lifestyle related measures that can be taken for such people that can help them?
Okay, I would say completely stop everything that is processed, packaged, and canned. Basically, whenever you're going to visit your supermarket, stick with only the veggie stuffs or the most staple foods that you need, like the grains, the pulses, and all these things. And do not enter the section where they have all the packaged foods like the snacks, and then you have the biscuits, the breakfast cereals. That is number one that I say people to stop. That is because, see, our body needs everything in just a teeny tiny amount. Okay, so when you're going to put a lot of in that, which in that matter I would say any processed food that comes, it is rich in sugar or salt. That is because these both are the preservatives. So pickles have a lot of salt, and jams have a lot of sugar, and those are the factors that this is keeping them alive. So the same thing happens in food, processed food too. So maybe just we can have this as an activity. So once the session is all done, you can just go to your favorite snack box or anything, pick a packet of biscuit that you have, start reading the label, and you might just find that you'll know only there's 2 or 3 ingredients that you know. And again, that will be like sugar, and then wheat flour or refined wheat flour and everything. So all these things are gonna put a lot of stress in your body. And by in that way, if it's too much of sugar at one point of time, you might become insulin resistant. That is because your insulin is on fluctuating a lot, and that can put a stress on your pancreas, and you'll become insulin resistant. And for those who say that I have my periods regularly, but then still I have a lot of the kind of issues that you mentioned, like the breast tenderness and all these things, for them, there can be high inflammation in their body, which means high cytokines in their body. And high cytokines also mean that too much of stress, and if they're not getting good amount of sleep, again, that it puts a lot of stress in their body, and too much of cytokines in their body, which is again going to disrupt everything. And our body is specifically designed like this. See, we have both sex hormones and stress hormones. Okay, so our body always favors the stress hormones, meaning that any decision that you're going to make, or let's say in ancient times and all, people lived by hunting animals, so they needed to have that fear of flight instinct in them, and that automatically gets the stress hormones triggered in their body because they need to survive. So it is the same now as well. So anytime when your body is checking for stress or sex, it almost goes only to the stress hormones, which means again a lot of inflammation happening in your body. You may not have reached the point where you have an illness, but then it doesn't mean that you are not there. You are just in the borderline.
Okay, so a few people have asked us that, how can we check whether we are ovulating? Of course, there are various, ways in which we can do that. Can you tell us how we can train ourselves to understand the ovulation symptoms? Because that also changes, the date also is not exactly the same at all times. So what are some ways in which we can check?
So the most common practice is to check your cervix mucus. So there is another method to test your temperature every day morning, and then you put a graph, and then if and that gives you when you're ovulating and everything. There are period apps that can help you to just tell when you're ovulating, and maybe in that, during that window, you can just check your cervix mucus, and it should be like a stretchy egg white consistency, which means you have ovulated. So it is basically like a discharge from your vagina, which is giving an indication that you are ovulating and not. So once you ovulate, your progesterone levels go up, and that can give you a good period. So in case if you haven't ovulated, it means you're still in the follicular phase and the ovulation hasn't happened yet, which means there is less progesterone in your body. So and to check the cervix mucus, it can either be so watery or it can be very thick and creamy. So, and the ideal cervix mucus you're looking for is that it should stretch like an egg white. You just put a little bit of egg whites between your fingers, and if you stretch, it should stretch well, like a thin line. And that means you have ovulated properly. And anything that is thick and creamy or watery, it means you're almost there, and you just need a few more days probably.
Okay, so I think that's very helpful. Another thing is, that when it comes to healthy menstrual cycle, the something that is as misunderstood, just like menstruation and menstrual cycle, is also menopause. And we get a lot of queries from people who are in the perimenopausal phase, and somebody asked questions about, how there are aches, pains, weight gain around the abdominal area. All those things happen. There's a lot of water retention, sodium retention, all of that. Now we always think of how normal this is, right? Because, yeah, this happens during menopause and it is normal. But what are some ways through diet and lifestyle that we can actually make these symptoms better in the perimenopausal phase?
Okay. See, in the perimenopausal phase or during the menopausal phase, it means that your egg reserve is really low, which means you won't be menstruating properly, by which means your progesterone levels are low and you start becoming estrogen dominant. Okay, by estrogen dominant, I mean like frequent periods. Many women at the menopausal stage would feel this. I have very frequent periods, and then it is very crampy, it is heavy, and all these things. It means that by default our estrogen pumps up and our progesterone levels have been stopped, because you need progesterone for babies, and your body thinks that, okay, you're no longer equipped to have babies, so that we'll just shut down that functioning in your body, and it is just estrogen that is playing a major role. So for those women, in the diet aspect, I would highly suggest start taking banana flours. So the plantain flour, you can have that, which will actually help in bringing a balance, and then a pomegranate daily. And also the achy and everything, it means like your body is lacking magnesium. So you can start having a lot of magnesium rich foods, which will again stop helping in reducing the pain in your body. And for women, those who are kind of obese, this menopause issue can be a lot more a bigger issue. That is because the estrogen that is in our body loves fat deposits, and they stay there in all the fat deposits. And whenever it is not needed, the estrogen starts coming out, and it gives a lot of heavy pain and heavy bleeding during their periods. So I would highly recommend people start taking raisins on a daily basis, like probably soak 5 to 6 raisins overnight and then have it the next day in the morning. That will reduce that, and a minimum amount of walking as well, because you need to just give your joints a little bit of exercise and everything. So that will definitely in an overall, it'll reduce their stress levels if they're going to walk outdoors. And also at the same point of time, if they tend to get insulin resistant, that can also just reduce that factor in later in life.
Okay, so we are also getting some questions about leukorrhea, the abnormal white discharge that people get. So can you tell us a little bit about why that happens, and what that might be an indication of? Today we have just one question about leukorrhea, but on our platform, this is a very common question that people have to use panty liners for leukorrhea. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
See, vaginal discharge can be because of various reasons. Number one, if you're not going to have a proper food intake, that can mess up a big time with your body's heat. And if your body's heat is increasing, people tend to have a little bit of discharge. And vaginal discharge is actually a way of the vagina self-cleaning mechanism, and people think that it is kind of bad, and they start using all these kinds of soaps and re-washes and everything that will start getting a, I mean, that will basically destroy the good bacteria that is needed for the cleansing mechanism. If at all I can just quote what Huda said, like we need good bacteria in our gut. The same thing happens in your vagina as well. You need good bacteria there as well. So you'll need to have good amount of food to help that bacteria work on its way. And usage of excessive amount of soaps down there and excessive amount of different kinds of washes that are available in the market, it plays a major role. See, being in a skincare section as well, I would say that all soaps, people might say that I'm using a cold processed soap down there and it won't do much harm. But you need to understand that cold processed soaps are towards more of alkaline range. Okay, the pH is more than 8 to 10 or at least 7. And whereas our vagina, our skin, our hair, everything, basically your body is more of acidic. Okay, so when you're going to put that alkaline in your acidic, it's going to mess up a big time, and then it will increase the vaginal discharge. It won't reduce it. So avoiding lots of soap usages down there, just plain water wash is fine according to me. But then and having a good balanced diet and drinking a lot of water helps. So all these things can help to maintain the discharge in a level.
Okay, so there are some, like before I continue, I just want to tell all the attendees that we're seeing a lot of questions here from 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. I will be addressing, those questions which are not very medical and personal. All right. So another thing, Sivaranjani, that a lot of people talk about is, identifying two things. One is, how do you test your hormone levels? What are some ways of testing them, or if there are any symptoms that, the hormone levels are not okay? Secondly, what are some tests for identifying cysts and fibroids in the uterus?
Okay, so the cysts, fibroids, it is all like, they are like cousin sisters of endometriosis. So again, you will have heavy bleeding, heavy cramps and all these things. And the best way to check is that by using a scan. And to test your hormonal levels, you can just go have a blood test or a urine test that will help you in just listing out how your hormone and everything is functioning. And based on if you're in the follicular phase or the luteal phase, there is a range of the hormones, how much they should be, and if they are in that particular range, it is all good. Okay. And what was the other question?
Basically, like, how do we measure the hormone? What are some tests for measuring the hormone levels in the body?
Okay, the best way is to find a urine test or a blood test that can help. There is a common test called, that's the Dutch test, that is very prevalent in the Western countries now, and it gives very accurate results because it is not just our reproductive organs that are producing estrogen and everything. It is even our adrenal glands produce a little bit of estrogen and all the other sex hormones as well. So it is best that if at all you have an access to a Dutch test, that is DUTCH, Dutch test, that will actually get you a good result on how the hormones are being metabolized in your body. And if at all not, at least a basic hormone profile on the blood, using your blood, can help to just list out how your hormones are working and everything. But the most evident way of knowing if your hormones are playing a big role in thing. If your androgens are high, androgens meaning your testosterones are high, you might start having a lot of male symptoms in your body. Male symptoms as in male pattern baldness, thinning of hairs, and then a lot of body hairs, chest has even for few people, and then beard, mustache, and then excessive, hirsutism, and all these things can identify that your body is treating itself as a male and there is excessive male hormones. And for estrogen dominance, like I told you, heavy crampy periods, very frequent periods, all these things can happen. And regarding the low progesterone, you might end up with a scanty period or even a spotting after your periods is done. So these things can, like, externally you can just find these things, but then to pinpoint how much in all these levels, I would suggest doing a blood test. And the other one is a Dutch DUTCH, just basically a dried urine test. So that can also just pinpoint, but I'm not sure if it's available in India right now.
Yeah, it is. It is beginning to be available in some parts, at least, I think.
Some parts, okay, right.
So, all right. So we got like the last 5-6 minutes. So, what I would like to ask you, Sivaranjani, is, a lot of people think that it is only now, suddenly in the so-called modern times, that women are being diagnosed with more and more illnesses and things like that. While it is partially true because of the kind of environmental toxins we have, it's also that, like so many of our mothers and so many of our grandmothers, in those times, women used to like die, like we used to hear of hemorrhaging and we used to hear of anemia and everything so often. How do we break this myth that yes, there are environmental toxins in the, around us, definitely, but it's not that modern women are doing something wrong and, like it's, like somehow nature is pushing back, and because this is something we hear so much. So can you tell us a little bit about how to demystify this very dangerous sort of myth that is propagated?
See, there should be a balance between both of them, in my opinion. We need the technology of this era as well, but when it comes to food habits and everything, we need from that as well. So we are sticking to a lot of processed foods and all these things that is bringing up a lot of issues in our body, whereas they stayed healthy, much healthier in the yesteryears. But they did not have the science and development that we have this year. So anemia or hemorrhages that could have been treated that time, and that wasn't treated that time, it can be treated this time. So I feel that there should be a balance between both of them. And it doesn't mean that, okay, you're bleeding, you would have to bleed to death, because that is pretty much nothing that we did in yesteryears and everything. You'll need to get advanced to the science and technology that we have this time. And there are so many methods to just find, and there's so many researchers going on to just make people aware that, okay, what is actually happening in your body and everything. And I think people should get educated about those things. And as an experience from the sessions and everything, what I found is that most of the women, they don't know what is actually happening in their body during a menstrual cycle. Okay, truth to be told, even I didn't know. Only when I had an issue to get pregnant, I started researching about all these things. Until then, okay, am I having my periods for every month? Okay, fine, then it means it's all good. But periods is one of the major signs that your body is telling, okay, you are healthy, everything is going on good in your body. And it is one sign that what men cannot find, we can find with our body. Okay, and I think that we need to make better use of it, and we should try to understand our body better. And the people are also nowadays very scared to talk to a doctor about, okay, what is actually happening in my body, and the doctors do not have the time to address things as well. So they should check for evidence that whichever is working, they need to work on those things. Just because Google says or some blog says that, people should not believe that. And of course, Google is all based upon, there are so many SEOs of things and happening. So anything that pops first, I would usually just swipe down a little bit, go down, and then start reading, because that will give you the exact facts that is happening. Or start reading a lot of journals that will help and that will give you a better insight of what is actually happening. And it is very, very, very much important to understand your own body, and then we can just move about things.
All right. Thank you so much. This was really, really useful because when we think of a healthy menstrual cycle, you're absolutely right. There is so much that we still don't know. I think when it comes to motherhood, birthing, hormones, we have only barely started, scratching the surface. And I'm very glad that,
Very true.
communities and, coaches like you, we're all sort of coming up and a lot of questions are getting answered. So thank you so much for your time, Sivaranjani. So I'll take some questions myself and give you some questions. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to start from the bottom. Somebody asked that they are 20 years old and is the menstrual cup safe to use? The answer is yes. The menstrual cup is safe to use. There is a lot of virginity myth associated with the menstrual cup. It is all just a myth. We at Thea Care, we definitely believe that cups or any healthier alternatives to mainstream pads can be better. There are also many organic cotton pads that are coming out. So please see what is comfortable for you to use. There are women who have issues like vaginismus, vulvodynia, whether they're 20 years old or 40 years old, it doesn't matter. So if it is comfortable for you, you found the right size, you've been able to measure your cervix, please go ahead. A menstrual cup is very, very healthy and it's a good product. Then somebody, I don't know who said it, but I was just scrolling through the answer questions, and somebody asked how using vibrator changes the menstrual cycle or something. I would just like to say that is a complete myth. In fact, let me tell you that when it comes to issues like vulvodynia, vaginismus, one of the things that people suggest is first trying to use a vibrator, easing the insertion in. What might affect your menstrual cycle is not the vibrator, but the fact that somebody is sexually active. So when you are sexually active, then there might be some hormonal changes, and for a while it might affect your menstrual cycle. It might become shorter, longer, whatever. But it is not the vibrator. These myths are all virtue oriented myths that if you're using a vibrator or something, it will affect your menstrual cycle, it will affect all of this, but that is not true. I don't know at what point somebody asked this, but
I would like to address about the vibrator once again.
right.
Like you mentioned, sexually active, it means like probably for the sexually active thing, you need testosterone playing a major role. So probably if that is too high, that can also lead to a lot of hormonal imbalances as well. So that can be a reason for the irregular periods issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Then somebody spoke about 2, 3 times about detox teas for for menstrual health and everything. Now, I think there is a lot that is available in the market, but there is something that is so beneficial that you can make it in 2 minutes in your kitchen. That is ginger water with a little bit of like cinnamon or just a sprinkling of jaggery. Ginger, garlic, turmeric, these are things that are not just fashionable these days because of veganism and all of that, but now there is evidence. The uh, the anti-inflammatory properties of ginger, garlic, cinnamon, cumin, that is jeera, turmeric, these things, there is now evidence for all of this. So I always say that dip into your kitchen pharmacy and make a tea for yourself. Use basil. Basil can be grown in a pot in your terrace garden. It's the most fuss free plant. Almost all, I think, Hindu households, a lot of Hindu households have tulsi in their balcony or
Swarnima,
something.
I'll
Yeah.
just join in 1 minute. It's okay?
Sure.
Just join.
Just switch
Right.
off your video and your
Sure.
audio and switch it on back
Sure.
whenever you're.
Definitely. Right. Thank you.
So, every time we think of teas, we don't have to necessarily go for teas that are available in the market. There are teas you can make at home. Just, crush some ginger, boil it in water, put a little bit of jaggery powder or something and have that. If you have Sri Lankan rolled cinnamon, use that. use a pinch of turmeric, very small pinch of turmeric. These are all teas that can actually help you. There is now evidence, like I was saying. All right. Then somebody asked, is it good to use V Wash? Now, V Wash is a particular brand, okay? And a lot of people ask us this question. We always tell you, and that is also what every doctor will tell you, that using these kind of washes regularly will actually destroy the good bacteria which is in the vagina, and the good bacteria is very important. Please remember that the white discharge, the discharge that is happening in our vagina, that is very important to determine ovulation. It is also very important for sperm to move towards, the egg when you're trying to conceive. So at that time, it is your cervical mucus that creates a hospitable environment for the sperm, because the vagina is actually very acidic. So killing of the good bacteria will have some really, really negative impacts on your overall health processes and functions. So you can, my suggestion, and every doctor will tell you, that just good old warm water, lukewarm water, that is good enough to wash your wash your vagina. Wear cotton panties, change it often. If you're sweating, then change it even more often, and that should like solve the problem. It doesn't have to be something very. You don't have to use a lot of too many products for that. Okay, what are some other questions that we have not already answered? Yeah, actually, somebody asked right in the beginning, that is surgery the only option if somebody has fibroids and uterus polyps, and is it cured by medicine? Actually, no, surgery is not the only option, and a lot depends on your health also and your age. So these days, a lot of women who are above the age of 40, 50, and the doctor asks you that, do you want to have any more children? Then they will suggest a hysterectomy. But, it really, I really feel that menopausal diet is something that is increasingly important to talk about, and it is definitely worth a trial, because even after hysterectomy, hysterectomy will solve certain problems like removing a fibroid or uterus or whatever, but it actually brings other hormonal issues with it. So it's always important to keep in mind that before any surgical option, it's a great idea to try some diet, lifestyle, and mental health related treatments that might go a long way in managing your symptoms. Sivaranjani, let me know when you're ready to take questions. You ready to take questions? All right. So I've unmuted you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So let
Good.
me scroll for some. Okay, another question I would like to take before I start screening the film is contraceptive pills. Now, Anuya mentioned quite a few things about the contraceptive pills in her session. I would just like to reiterate that. There are a lot of women who face excruciating pain during endometriosis, adenomyosis, and all of that. In India, abroad, the oral contraceptive pill has really helped a lot of women manage pain. However, it is not something that is going to give permanent good health results to women. There is a lot of research that now shows the harmful effects of the oral contraceptive pills. Again, this is a space where research is very fragmented and contradictory, but now there is conclusive evidence of how oral contraceptive pills are not the long-term solution you're looking for. We don't want to tell you not to take it ever, because we understand that there's a lot of pain. It can be, for some people, it can just be excruciating. So what you can do is, if you're going for oral contraceptive pills, if you're talking to a gynecologist, what you should definitely keep in mind is that what are some diet and exercise related interventions that you can supplement it with. If there is an easy and comfortable transition in and out of pills, that can actually improve your experience and make it less harmful in the long run. So definitely think of diet and lifestyle and exercise related interventions along with easing yourself in and out of pill usage if you are absolutely sure that that's going to help you, right? Let me go to the next questions. Sivaranjani has already answered questions about intermittent bleeding. Um, that's absolutely fine. In fact, like that is just so cute. And it's so important to also highlight that, women, working women, all right, so somebody asked that a person's menstrual cycle is changing constantly. If your menstrual cycle is changing constantly, then you have to take some help from a gynecologist. You can also talk to health coaches. Sivaranjani, do you want to talk about it?
Yes. Can you repeat the question? Sorry, I didn't hear it well.
The question is about how a person has she's a juvenile diabetic, and she has been so for 20 years. She used to have regular periods, but now her cycle is constantly changing.
Okay. See, again, the diabetic, I think, again, insulin plays a major role. And only by having insulin regulated, it again puts a lot of less pressure on the other hormones as well. So I think regulating the insulin is the number one thing that she has to do. And I would highly suggest having cinnamon tea on a daily basis. That can also help in insulin sensitivity and everything. And that can help in putting the other hormones at ease.
Okay. So, we've got a simple feedback poll. I request you all to take this poll. This is not for panelists, it's just for attendees. So please take the poll and let us know. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, so continuing to the next question. Okay. Somebody is talking about more blood clots than liquid blood during menstruation. What can be done for that?
In case if they might be estrogen dominant and the lining is kind of abruptly breaking, and that is the reason they might get clots. So based on how regular their cycle is and how their cycle pattern is, we'll be able to address. Oh, okay. So can you hear me now?
I think we can just switch off our video for a few minutes and just, so that we can, the bandwidth is saved. I'm just switching off my video. You do the same and just let's just speak.
Okay, sure. Right. Is it audible now? Is it proper?
Yeah, absolutely audible. Please go ahead.
Okay, perfect. See, I feel that it can be an issue with estrogen dominance because the clotting can also be a sign that, and other factors also play a major role, like how regular her periods is and how the bleeding is, and probably a 3 months cycle reading can actually help to pinpoint the reason. So, but just since we have mentioned heavy clotting and everything, I would say this can be an issue of estrogen dominance. And for all those people who complain about like having heavy bleeding, heavy cramping, very frequent periods and everything, I would suggest having grounded flax seeds on a daily basis, and you can just see how their body is working for it, and then they can continue it until the issue sorts, because flax seeds are phytoestrogens that can actually help in metabolizing the estrogen family properly. By that, they can reduce all these heavy crampings and everything. So that could be a solution, and you can just try it out for a few months and see how it is working for them.
Yeah, I think that is great because somebody also asked us a question about seed cycling. And
yes.
Yeah, if you can just quickly tell us the process, how is the seed cycling done?
Okay, I'm a huge fan of seed cycling, and for those who attend my sessions, I strongly suggest them to go with seed cycling because it really helps in bringing their periods without doing any kind of an external issues. Of course, there is a diet that I've been suggesting people to do. But then, regarding seed cycling, you need to, like, for an ideal period, it is 28 days, right? So 14 days will be the follicular phase and the other 14 days will be a luteal phase. And in the first 14 days, you can take 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon, whichever you're comfortable. So one teaspoon of pumpkin seeds and 1 teaspoon of flax seeds. What this will do is that it will give the proper estrogen boost that is needed, and flax seeds will help to flush out the what do you call the excessive estrogen in your body out. Okay, and in case if you're low in estrogen, these flax seeds will help in developing the estrogen that is needed, because estrogen is something that gives back a signal to the pituitary gland for the ovulation to happen. And if that signal is missing, you may not ovulate for a very long time, and that will lead to irregular periods. And coming to the second cycle, you'll need to take sesame seeds and also what is it, sunflower seeds. So these two will give you the progesterone boost that is needed, and that can also help in bringing about a good period. And you will need to do like 14 days each and keep continuing it, 14 days, 14 days, and 14 days. And at one point of time, your periods will start synchronizing with it, because you're giving that essential hormone boost that is needed for each 14 days, and ultimately this will regulate your periods. So there is a one other question every time I say about seed cycling. I ultimately get back a question asking, okay, sesame seeds induce heat, and I'm planning for a pregnancy. How can I take sesame seeds? See, sesame seeds actually is such a brilliant seed which helps in promoting progesterone in our body. And that is a myth that has been prevailing for a very long time, since ancient times, because our grandma will like say, like, you'll have to take 2 sesame seed balls or sesame seeds to bring about your periods. It helps in bringing about your periods, but they need to understand how it brings. That is because sesame seeds will ideally flush out all the excessive testosterone in your body, thereby increasing the progesterone in the body, and you will get your periods. For those women who are trying to get pregnant, remember, you will need progesterone for a sustained healthy consumption. And the people who are visiting doctors, they might be given progesterone pills or HCG pills. HCG indirectly helps progesterone stay there, and people will start taking supplements like these, and they will have their either but I mean they will have their pregnancy going on. Whereas sesame seeds is a natural form of progesterone that you can have. But if you're really not convinced with the answer, and you can just Google up for the studies based on this, and even after that, if you're not convinced, probably make the dosage into half when it comes to sesame seeds, and then you can still go about the seed cycling. So I just repeat once again, it is 14 days of flax seeds and pumpkin seeds, and then switch to sesame seeds and sunflower seeds. 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon, whichever comfortable.
Okay, that's great. There is another question, which is about, um, since you mentioned the importance of progesterone.
Yeah,
Another question that we are getting is, wait, I'm sorry, I just lost it.
no
Just one.
issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are some people who are talking about different kinds of foods to prevent hair growth, male pattern hair growth. Can you tell us a little bit about male pattern hair growth?
Fruits, you mean?
No, so
Food.
a lot of people are asking about different solutions for male pattern hair growth.
Okay, see, first you'll need to address your hormonal issue, so which means regularizing your hormones and regulating everything in a proper way. That itself will stop the hair fall. And the seed cycling is one of the best ways to regulate your hormones and everything, because it flushes out the excessive androgens, that which means your body will start treating itself like you're a woman and you need to have this progesterone and estrogen. It will start functioning that way. And for example, if you see pregnant women have estrogen and progesterone boosted up, and that is the reason they have good hair growth and there is less hair fall and everything. So only by flushing out the androgens, I think your body will automatically get the signal that you'll need to have good hair growth and good nails, in fact.
All right, all right. Okay. So I'm scrolling through the other questions, and we have actually. Okay, you know what? I'm going to ask you a question that has not been asked here, but it is
Okay.
something like a lot of people ask us, and you can just give us a little bit of an intro. That,
Okay.
when somebody is going through an IVF cycle or an IUI cycle,
Yeah.
what are some ways of maintaining your good health and diet and lifestyle during that phase, which takes such a toll on our bodies?
See, I wouldn't mix up IVF and IUI together.
Yeah.
IUI, it is basically, you can have your normal foods and everything, but a clean diet, I would suggest, and no processed foods, absolutely, and that will definitely help your chances of increasing in IUI. Whereas IVF, it means like you will be given shots of FSH and LH and everything. So, and the one way is that IUI fails because of the egg quality. And egg quality can decrease because of too much of toxins in your body, or extreme exposure to radiations, and all these things can happen. And lack of antioxidants in your body can result in failures in IVF. So you need to start boosting yourself with antioxidants, which means you need to take all sorts of dark leafy green veggies or dark kinds of fruits and vegetables that is available in the market, and make sure they are organic, because we don't want, again, pesticides in the form of toxins entering in your body. So you need to start having a clean diet with a lot of antioxidants in them, which can improvise your egg quality, thereby increasing your chances of IVF successes. And whereas IUI, it is, I would say, the same diet for those who are trying for a natural pregnancy, and clean diet, no processed foods, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, Shivaranjani, thank you so much for sticking with us till the end.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to thank all the attendees. We started with, around 140, we went up to around 170 attendees. And now, after 2.5 hours, actually 3.5 hours, 4 to 7:30, we still have 60 participants.